Today's topic is innovation leadership priorities from this part of the world, actually Asia and South Asia. So I just want to give a brief about what we do so that actually you'll be able to really connect the dots. We are an innovation consulting firm, pure play innovation consulting firm, helping companies driving innovation, um, digital transformation, AI transformation, and intellectual property, right? So more from the creation part. And then we guarantee minimum 3x impact. If you don't achieve 3x, we don't really charge. And then so far, we are not missed a single invoice. Okay. And we work in three areas. One is the strategic innovation, how the senior leadership need to really look at innovation. The second part is the people innovation, much more interesting, but how to enable each and everyone in the organization. The third part is design thinking and like an functional innovation, which is our own proprietary methodology. And also we work with like another intellectual property. Ultimately, if it's a product based company, our focus is more on IP creation. And these are some of our clients to really get a brief about. And then like we have worked with more than 100 plus companies, and then like significant impact has been like the delivered through our consulting engagements as well as workshops. And also we significantly contributed to industry association also. We have one of the topmost university in India, that is Indian Institute of Science. People at Innomantra can pursue their PhD programs also. So very recently, one of our colleague actually who completed his PhD. And this is our recent achievement. Actually, we published an article which featured as a cover article in Harvard Business Review. It turned into the book chapter. Later, it also got republished as a special issue. And then it has touched more than 12 million people. After that, we got a lot of traction. It got published in 8 different languages. So as an outcome of that article, we could able to develop a product, Idea Fund, wherein to basically it's an innovation management platform. People can discuss ideas, vote ideas. Even also built an AI, because in this part of the world, the biggest challenge is people have fantastic ideas, but what the biggest challenge was how to really articulate those ideas. So after this, like ChatGPT and like an OpenAI, we could able to integrate that. People can really nowadays their ideas looks much better than what it was in the past. So now actually this is one of the projects which we took out for a Bangalore airport, and we generated around 5,000 ideas. This include passengers, employees, partners, and then their vendors and suppliers. And most of the ideas which came out was interesting because most of the ideas are outside the airport. Actually, they want to have a Bangalore experience within the airport, because most of the time what we see is the shops, and then the experience is all global brands and then global products, and they don't really feel like Bangalore. So this is something a very powerful insight which came up, and then now you can see a lot of restaurant which is locally very popular is also available within the airport. And this is my recent visit to the conference board in Singapore, wherein I presented to more than 150 plus CHROs. The biggest challenge today what CHROs are facing is their role is coming down because of the AI coming in, right? So what they see today is basically how to really integrate generative AI, human intelligence, and robotics actually. So how we can bring it together. So we wanted to really redefine the CHRO, the Chief Human Resources Officers, as the Chief Human Reinvention Officers. Actually, this is what the thought process which we brought in. And also in the recent past, there was a lot of traction with the community driving innovation. This is a NASSCOM body, which is one of the highly um, regarded industry association for software services and IT services. We took a tour, touched more than 6 cities. This is some of the cities in different cities. Touched more than 500 plus people in the last 6 months, and the results are amazing. So we have been asking this question: what is your innovation priority, to everyone who come and participate? And people said they're losing the grip because the market is really transforming, and then they don't know what exactly to be done in digital and AI transformation. And second part is the resources is the biggest challenge, because you need a new skill to really drive new projects. So that is a big challenge, and then the skill is big gap. The future tech, people think future tech means actually what they use in their home automation and so on and so forth, but actually the machines there which they are working still it's 30 years old actually. So there is a mismatch with their what they think about future tech. The innovation, people think what customer asks for. Actually, now we need to really reinvent around what customer is willing to look for, right? So the profit is a big challenge today because people say that it is there on the spreadsheet, but actually it is not there on the table. Actually, this is a big concern. Profit margins are shrinking significantly, and then even like the one of the biggest challenge in the recent past is in this part of the world is with the cost pressure. Actually, like with the tariff which has gone to the roof. Now the 50% tariff has been put for manufacturing products actually which is exported from India, and they hit the roof, nothing is working for them. Passing on the baton to the next generation has become a big challenge. And then new normal or no normal, actually, what organizations are going to do actually. So the thrust for innovation has increased drastically. At the same time, we also try to the funnel down what is their priority. One is quickly responding to changing conditions, and then generate new revenue stream for growth. Actually, the profit margins are shrinking. What else I can do? And also, people are looking at how to really bring high impact operational efficiency with the generative AI and AI. And also, one of the biggest the change which I've seen in the last decade is people are giving a lot of thrust on creating the customer experiences. That is one thing which is happening. And then how to make innovation repeatable is a big challenge because many of the organizations, even the chief innovation officers were removed actually, and open innovation and collaborative innovation projects were the funds were the frozen, and then they had to really wind up some of the areas. But at the same time, we see there is a lot of positiveness. Being innovative is a new competitiveness. This is what the mindset in the leaders. And also, what I've seen today is basically the ecosystem collaboration is pretty very forward looking. The event which we conducted in 6 cities, actually we could able to see how to really innovate within the system that is actually bringing the culture and so on and so forth. The second part, we are also looking at how to really bring innovation from outside, merging with startups and then collaborating with the startups. Okay, so the reinvention is the mantra, and then at the same time, we did 2 cohorts of ISO 56000 in this part of the world. The response was amazing because people could able to really talk single language, common definition, and common purpose can be pulled around that. So we did a 1 day certification program in 2 of the cohorts. More than 20 people were there in each of this cohort, and then organizations are very open to really send their people and then make them aware of the new standard which is coming up actually. So this is what actually I just wanted to share. And then in India, actually, a lot of work is happening on digital and deep tech solutions. Actually, a lot of investments are happening on the deep tech solutions. Actually, in the next decade, I will see a lot of activities will happen around deep tech innovation. That's what actually taking the working with NASSCOM, we could able to really go around the the different parts of the India. Okay, so that's all from me. Actually, I'll be very happy. I thank for the opportunity. I really appreciate. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take up.
I'm a PhD researcher. I have a long career involved in innovation, but I'm not going to go into that now because it's not really appropriate. So I am researching in the UK expert entrepreneurs, and I'm 2 years through a part-time, and I've just done some pilot research with a bunch of expert entrepreneurs, and I thought it would be really useful to look at them as the innovation leaders in their businesses and some of their thoughts around kind of their priorities and also the digital aspect as well. I thought that. So I will start with who they are a bit. So they're expert entrepreneurs. The criteria that I use is that they must have a stake in the business, which is typically financial, and they must be a principal decision maker or even the single decision maker in the business. I have a big assumption that all entrepreneurs are innovators. If they're not innovators, then they're not entrepreneurs. they are people in business, or they are people who are in other endeavours around perhaps a purpose-led organisation, but that doesn't make them an entrepreneur. And I think we have to reclaim that word, and its coupling with innovation, I think, is really important, particularly in the context of some of the things that you guys are focusing on in terms of innovation and leadership. So that's kind of, I suppose, a bit of a substance. So over the summer, I interviewed kind of 6 leaders of medium-sized to larger kind of SME firms, and some corporates as well. So they had some comparative people that we could talk to, whose role was also to kind of lead those innovation processes. So I would say that from that, I've got a few sort of takeaways really. For all of them, innovation was fundamental business practice. You know, when I asked them, things that were really important to them in that role, that was one of the key things that they wanted to express. And they saw it in some very key ways. I suppose the first thing is obviously products and services, either in development of new or in terms of pushing the capability of ones that they already had. The obvious things for these smaller firms is also the functional performance. How do they get more productivity out of what they've got, particularly in the tools that they're using? And a lot of that is around AI and those sorts of things, around how do we optimize what we've got, all the things that we talked about, pattern matching, that sort of thing, using the technology to do more. I suppose the biggest area has been around people in these smaller firms, because they're having to compete against very large firms for talent. So much more use in recruitment processes, around gamification and filtering type activities, but also in how do we retain people, how do we develop people, and around some of the engagement strategies that they've used, particularly around the kind of embedded processes that they have in their business. I thought it might be useful to give you a couple of examples of some of the things that they are doing in terms of innovation practice. All of the businesses that I interviewed did something, even if it was just small half-day sessions, but laying out as the leaders their strategic objective, but really involving all of their people. So some were doing half-day sessions, they were doing hackathons, they were having innovation weeks where they were prioritizing using different technologies and letting the staff choose things which are around their skill sets and their interests, not just things that they as the leader thought would be a good idea. Setting a budget and letting them get on with it. And then using their teams to work much more multidisciplinary. So just putting everybody in together and seeing how it works, which was, I thought, an interesting outcome. One of the things that they were really focusing on was how do we make sense of this in terms of, that value proposition, in terms of profitability. What will it actually do for our business? When will it do it for our business? I think in terms of their ability to manage that, they were still, or to evaluate that as leaders, is still open. They're really finding it hard to commercialize, to actually bring that in. And I think one or two of them had very specific challenges. So one was somebody who'd been in the firm less than a year. He bought this firm or taken it on as manufacturing, had no culture, nothing going on at all, just a little bit of R&D in this manufacturing area, and has just said, well, I have to start from ground zero, and set embarking on an 18 months to 24-month program, which starting with culture, and it's starting with the skills development of people in really primary areas and really short engagements with people to start getting them to raise the level of curiosity and creativity rather than just task focused, and then working more in groups in the business to allow them to do that. And he did a 2-day away day. He said it cost me a fortune, but I thought I had to make the investment in the business to really reset our culture. and to really start from the bottom. And this is a firm of about 200 people. It's sort of, 20, 30 million turnover. It's really needing to expand its markets. And alongside that, I suppose the practice that they've looked at is how do we actually get more out of our kit, more out of our equipment, and spending much more time on funding, using AI and other things to help with that, and technology, to help with their application processes so they've got the time to spend on the thinking part of the application. Also, much more working with external people. So high level of collaboration outside the firm. So a lot of them are moving to much more distributing their innovation practice by having partners who are maybe suppliers. They might be complementary people who they partner with to deliver to bigger customers, and also directly with customers. So several of them all have initiatives going along either for taking products to a new market, or expanding products, or helping each other to extend their footprint in the marketplace, which I thought was a very interesting approach by creating either new ventures or new activities. To do this, they've had to really focus on their people, so having fewer people that they're spending time on, so less recruitment, and actually spending more time and more money on the people that they've got to make it work. In terms of their kind of technology areas, I think back office, recruitment, operations, and business analysis. So a lot more looking at where they make their money, where can we actually do things differently in terms of business performance. So looking for errors, looking for patterns, looking for cost savings in getting the software and technologies to do that for them a lot more. Scenario planning and those sorts of activities. Even creating standard operating procedures. How many things can we take out or let our people get to a point where they can have a rough draft quicker, so increase their productivity, but really start to get value amount out of them. One person gave me an amazing example of what he called his side hustle, where he had a problem with trying to print on demand something at a weekend, thought I could just do this better myself. And then over the next 2 weeks, he went from concept to a live site, and 6 months on is generating £20,000 a month from that as a side hustle to his main business out of solving a problem he had. So he's very innovative. He has had, I think he's on his 4th business that he's bought and sold, and in just working through that kind of experimentation. So that's the kind of things I'm seeing in smaller firms. But I think one of the things I find interesting is they seem to be at odds with a lot of the hype about using things. In terms of they don't yet see, you see a lot of big case studies around large firms saying, oh, it gives us huge productivity gains, but they're not seeing that. They're not seeing that they're adding more people. They're not seeing that they are seeing necessarily any increase in their profitability. So really grappling with how do I build return on investment in a smaller firm here? What's the models and things that we can use? Because we can't use what we've used before for things like our proof of concept projects and things that we've used, because it's more pervasive in terms of some of the technologies that we're using now to see where the gains will be. So yeah, it's very much an open sort of debate.
So when I got the request from Rob, I tried to look a little into some of my recent experiences from my work with recent client programs. And this is more mature companies and it's larger companies. So this is in the context of corporate innovation, where a lot of times our starting point, that's with the innovation hub. That could be an innovation director, it can be a VP for innovation and other things. And I try to compile some of the things that we see. one of the, and it has been with companies with a broad spectrum. It has been with electrical products and solution. It has been a cosmetics company. It has been a company in engineering consulting. It has been a company within test and certification. So it's actually a broad span of companies who had an innovation function in the organization. One of the things that is an issue is about what is the mandate of this innovation hub. And what I'm trying to illustrate here is that it goes in more directions. One is toward the C-suite, senior leadership, where the innovation hub can have experience that there's an unclear or untransparent decision making. For instance, which initiatives get support sponsorship? It can seem very opportunistic. It can seem very dependent on individuals, on specific persons. It can be difficult actually to understand what is actually the scope, what is in, what is out, when we are trying to drive innovation initiatives. Sometimes they also get a feeling that allocated budgets, they migrate to core business at emergencies. So maybe they have a budget at the beginning of the year, but when emergency occur with quality, with customers, then that budget seems to evaporate, or the access to resources. Another thing that also sometimes comes up is also that it seems like there's a tendency that top management, they actually look at AI as a tool for cost reduction, whereas the innovation hub, they more have a tendency to use AI as an enabler for improvements or progress. And sometimes there's a discrepancy there. If you look to the other side, then the collaboration with the rest of the organization, middle managers, innovation teams, business units, then the experience is a lot of times that these entities, they want to use the innovation team as a support function. They want to use them for ideation, facilitation, have them help with some scouting and sometimes also some validation of ideas or things. And they want to use them for documentation. And then they want the innovation team not to interfere, and they should certainly, I can see there's a typo, they should certainly stay away from existing customers. And some business unit leaders even comes with claims like, well, to them, the innovation team is not delivering anything that they couldn't do themselves. And they would rather prefer that they stay out of their way because they sometimes slow them down. And I think this evolves a lot around leadership. Leadership, both for the innovation team, but certainly also from the C-suite, about negotiating or clarifying what are the ground rules for innovation in this particular company. Another thing we also hear quite a lot, that's actually quite a few companies have a distinct innovation strategy. Obviously, they have a strategy, but no strategy for innovation. And when I talk about an innovation strategy, then I'm looking for a strategy that's designed for a future view, that identifies some strategic focus areas. What are the domains that we want to build new platforms for future business that be used to guide the organization, that can be a guiding star for the decision makers, the priorities, and make sure that allocated resource is not migrating into core business. And also what belongs in which part of the organization, what parts of the innovation is driven, or where does the resource go? Is that from the innovation team, the innovation hub, or is that from the line of business? Who's doing what? Also, what are the future competencies we need to develop? A lot of the tech-driven companies are also a lot with AI. What part of AI are we want to develop? Cloud computing, other things, to identify what are the areas where we want to have better competencies or capabilities in the future. And also to set up a proper framework for portfolio management and opportunity selection. And that goes across this to have the current strategy for the core business, which is designed from a present view. You are extrapolating from where you are today, and that's two very different perspectives. On the right side, I'm just trying to, from my old company, Grundfos, where when we started working with the initiative, we created a spider chart on different axes to say, where are we today and where do we want to be? To put up some guidelines for where our priorities, and then certainly also to handle this paradox in the ambidextrous leadership, that in leadership, you want to sustain the current development trajectory because that's what pays the bill today. And at the same time, you also want to innovate for new pursuits or growth trajectories for tomorrow. And that's two quite different worlds that you need to navigate, both for senior leadership, but also for the innovation hub and the rest of the organization. Another theme that comes up is about mindsets and vocabulary. A lot of the companies that we talk with, they are using the vocabulary, the way to talk about innovation that's illustrated on the left side with McKinsey's Horizons, which obviously talks about Horizon, and they also talk a lot about when they are assessing innovation initiatives on impact. And that makes a lot of sense, of course, in the sense that it's important. What is the impact on the business, of course, for financial reasons? But if you use that to decide what kind of methodology or what kind of mindset you need to use to reduce uncertainty in the front end of innovation, then it's more to assess what are we talking about, how much uncertainty are we dealing with here? And then you'll figure out how much impact can that do on the business. And we try to work a lot with the innovation continuum from the low incremental innovation over the medium adjacent innovation and to high uncertainty with strategic innovation. And the two last categories, they require a learning mindset. You need to reduce the uncertainty before it makes any sense to use phase-gated versions where you need predictability. And very few companies, as we see it, have it. They have agile and they have these two things meshed together, but the mindset, the methodology, the way they describe opportunities at the very beginning, they have project management vocabulary about requirements, about resource allocation and other things. And they try to force feed it into existing frameworks and methodologies and tools and templates. And that brings us into the innovation management system. I think also, Lokesh, you mentioned the ISO 6001, and that is actually right now a segue for us to work with these companies, because a lot of companies are interested in getting an assessment of their innovation management system capabilities according to the ISO framework, not so much right now to be certified, but as a framework for assessment and have a common vocabulary. And that, of course, goes to that these existing processes and tools from the incremental innovation, they are not fit for the more strategic innovation in the front end where you need to deal with higher levels of uncertainty. One of the things we notice also, a lot of the companies, when we start with them, they talk about a project pipeline versus a portfolio of options. And that's also two very different mindsets, where with a pipeline, you expect when you start something, you want to finish it. But with a portfolio of options in the beginning, you want to have a lot of options, and some of them you'll divest, you'll stop, you'll shelf, and then eventually you might have a fraction of the opportunities that actually you actually want to scale and commercialize. We also see that the companies work with, they have actually a quite comprehensive set of metrics for the innovation initiatives. But a lot of the metrics, they're relevant for the incremental innovation. They have very few relevant, appropriate metrics to gauge the progress in front-end innovation. Reduction of uncertainty, get traction and other things. That's also something we think. And the ISO framework is a big help to get a common vocabulary for this. My last slide is something that we are working a lot with, And we call it the readiness level, where we were very much inspired by NASA, that have the TRL, which is the middle column here, where we look at in the very front end, that's in the pre-discovery, when you start to identify your idea, and TRL9, that's when NASA had brought their lunar expedition safe back to Earth, if that's the problem. And our claim is, and what is very helpful for us, we have developed or expanded that to include also readiness level for market, for ecosystem, for resource, and for organization. And a lot of the clients we work with, that is actually, we have VPs who use this overview, and we have more text in this, to help them guide their conversations. What kind of questions are you asking in early discovery? It's different kind of questions compared to what kind of questions you are asking in late incubation, where you want to have a demonstrated model and you want to be ready to invest in acceleration. So to many companies, this is really central and very helpful for them, because it is very much about the ability to ask the right questions at the right time. And the other aspects is also, we see quite a lot of technical driven companies, they have a tendency to get far ahead on technical aspects, technical proof of concepts, and they can be at TRL5 and then on 0 at organization or at ecosystem. And that will catch up with them and bite them at the end. So that was my relatively fast compilation of things that I've thought of when Rob asked me to share some of the things I experienced with my work with clients. So thanks for your attention, and feel free to drop questions or come back to me.
Quite quickly, just a review of the book John Bessett and I, we're going to publish on art-based thinking, and we really want to explore the link and the boundaries, or actually the challenges regarding human creativity with AI. I mean, it's really an overload of argumentation. So what AI brings, and now we see a lot of articles who are really questioning that. So what is the human space? What is the artificial intelligence space, and how can we link that? And I just want to just give you some overview. So we have 3 parts of the books, and the context and challenge is the first one. And of course, we're reflecting upon the AI moment, or other topics like paradise lost, I call that, because we dive into endless iterations using the machines, rather than to stop and to think that through from our own idea and experience. So it's an opportunity and a challenge itself. Then the major part of the book is about methods on human-centered innovation. And so we are reflecting upon methodologies like the art thinking process, which is really an open innovation process. Also thinking about narrative sculptures, which could mirror situations within organizations. So actually, it's very much about visual thinking rather than arguing. So what might be the next step for innovation? So narrative sculptures could be really a cool instrument to make it tangible and visible for organization. And last but not least, so there's kind of a summary at the end. And so dancing with machines, and actually, so just in the 20s, when the Bauhaus area was on in art and manufacturing, so there was a robot playing with a human person. So this thinking about how to interact with machines is over 100 years old. So, and last but not least, of course, is how can we reinvent the human space? So we want to really challenge that. And the positive feedback by the publishing house, De Gruyter, was that they said they get so much proposals on AI strategy and stuff like that, that he said, no, you're asking here the right question. So what is the point we as humans can make in terms of our position and our part or space for human thinking and human creativity? So that's it. Very shortly, briefly from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Jörg. And that's a book in the early stages of progress, right? That you're writing with John Bessent.
Absolutely. We just started about 2 weeks ago. And so sketching out all the contributions and possible chapters right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just dropped into chat. If for those who don't know Jörg, tell me if I'm on track here, but you're an artist by background, by training, and then who has gone into business
Yes.
later?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a background as artist on positive psychology, and so I bring the creative principles of art into the world of organizations for all kinds of things. Could be on innovation, could be on leadership topics. So our framework fits very well to self-development and team development, and also a bit organizational development.
Okay, so all you may want to follow up with the 4 speakers today. So just ask for that in chat. Speakers, you might want to drop your contact details into chat. But otherwise, there may be many things that have been raised just now. We've heard a bit of research practice from India and Southeast Asia, from Europe, with a design thinking basis, with an arts-based basis. So I think quite a wide range of provocations.
Incredibly interesting, like you said, 4 different perspectives. But if you think clearly, there are connections there. But I want to go back to I think it closes with your very well. But I want to go back to the first point and the article that was shared. I didn't have time to read, but I'm very interested in this idea. It's something that I'm exploring too. This idea of using generative AI to make our divergent starting of the innovation process very open, considering multiple perspectives, helping us to unlearn some things that we might be incredibly used to, right? And with that, with reframing that way, open up for more possibilities. But then we have to go down into some kind of a pipeline. And I also saw briefly on the article that you were using AI, or proposing the use of AI also to refine those ideas, right? But on the last stage, when we are starting to have a more convergent process, right? Because at some point that idea has to become a concept that could be validated for market launch. One of the ideas that I stumbled upon was this idea of collective cognition, which is bringing back the incredibly human factor, and instead of obviously delegating the final decision of what ideas are going into a pipeline for development, is to bring maybe a say a cross-functional, breaking silos type of team that will validate the ideas for development. So basically, you start with AI helping you with many ideas, bringing many ideas forward, multiple possibilities, but maybe the process ends with a collaborative approach to validate those ideas for development, with a very human element to it, right? So do you want to comment a little bit, or anybody really, about this, and how would that work?
See, the conversation today, what is happening in companies, people have started using AI in the projects effectively. Like last project which we worked with, the Titan, one of the largest Tata Group, which is the largest retail business. They are into everything, watches and the bags, belts, and everything. They said they use extensively. At the same time, they also validate so that there won't be any IP overlapping with any other companies, so that the decision is made by the individuals, where they take the responsibility. It's not about whatever the AI is given directly being used or something. So I think what we see is today, it's a human intelligence plus the artificial intelligence coming together. So we need to really, bring that the thought process that actually you cannot leave everything to the AI. Actually, that is very clear. So we also work with a machine tool company, and then we identified certain futuristic design for the machine tool. It's basically a turning machine, and then another milling machines, and then the kind of the industrial design it thrown out. Even the designers were really surprised to see that kind of intricacies in the rendering, what it really delivers. They said, even the designer who spent 25 years, he said, this is something amazing. this is the wowness is bringing in people that really forcing them to really look at the AI possibilities more than at the same time, the selling is becoming much easier today because earlier days people used to talk about ideas. People are going back with the models today because they already have an AI model which AI rendering and then which is helping them to really make the models quickly so that the discussions are more from the constructive side, not in rejecting those ideas. Actually, that's something amazing which you could able to really see.
Hi Rob. Hi everyone. This is really interesting because I've just come out of a situation where I founded and launched and then exited an innovation management platform called Solverboard, which started its life in open innovation, and then on the advice of some of our early backers decided to focus on internal open innovation, so using organizations as their own innovation ecosystems, I guess. When we were acquired by a company in the US called Sophion, based out of Denver, famous for the Stage-Gate approach, the Bob Cooper Stage-Gate approach to innovation. Right. They acquired us and immediately set about dismantling the product to make it an idea management platform rather than innovation management platform, which was fine. We didn't mind. So one of their sort of mandates was we want to simplify the product to idea management. The second one was we want you guys to use AI. We want you to fill it with AI without really knowing what AI was and how useful it could be in the innovation process. So what we did is we looked at actually what organizational weaknesses are around maturity and decided to focus our AI on that. So look at how mature organizations were in their approach to innovation, and not just in their approach to innovation, but also their failure friendliness, I guess you could say, and help support with that. So the places we overlaid AI in that product was right at the beginning, where organizations, sometimes people struggle to frame challenges in a way that made them idea friendly. So getting away from that kind of scary blank sheet of paper where I got this challenge, I have no idea how to frame this to get maximum engagement. Can AI help? AI also then served up the first few ideas for each of those challenges. Again, getting away from the fact that nobody really wants to be first and no one wants to come up with the first idea. They'd far rather develop an existing idea than be the first one when it looks stupid. That went against my own personal recommendation, which was ideas have to be human, but I got why they kind of decided to put the first 5 ideas in from an AI generation tool. That was fine. The second area was when it came to proof of concepting the successful ideas, coming up with some initial experiments to use to validate those ideas. So again, an area where people sometimes get a little bit worried about, am I going to run the right experiments? Let's help them with that. Don't actually do the work. Humans have got to do the work, but the AI can help to suggest what work they should do. And then the third one, which was a shame because it all went wrong in terms of the acquisition right when we were building this, which would have been amazing. But the idea was that they would have a panel of assessors for each idea, assessing on viability, feasibility, and desirability. And then they would have AI trained on internal documentation that would interrogate what we call the corporate memory, I guess, of the organization to say, well, actually, are we as an organization well set to actually deliver this new idea? And have we done it before? And there's just learnings we can take from 30 years ago where we've got some information somewhere that says, actually, we approached a similar situation in this way. And that was driven by the fact that sometimes the people have been there a year or two and they're not the best source of solutions, but the business itself is. The business itself has got a data pool going back years that can be interrogated, and those ideas can be validated by the business itself if you do that right. So just some of my own sort of observations really on that kind of interface between AI and organizations.
From moving into public sector but corporate, I'm an innovator and got my own startup and founding and very highly innovative person. We used Rob's and his colleagues' research, and I use that for cover, for like air cover, if you like. because I would be able to show that in health and care, and it had credence. So when I was seen as highly innovative and therefore resistance hit back in that corporate place, it really helped to kind of go, oh, and it does say this in the recommendations, and that had been already respected by the exec board as well. Didn't make it all easy, and there was lots of bumps, and I just did it slowly. And the other thing that really helped with the big corporate, the big organizations, and this was 70,000 staff, multi-sector, organization, multi-level for over 2 years, was something called, I developed called there's two things. One I developed called the Exemplar Hub, and I would put things in there, and it meant that every partner could come and try a bit without going back and getting stopped immediately. And they could then explore, and we could hold the dissonance. And then the other thing was Rob's and the teams, they came up with this thing, I don't know if it's in common text, but innovation, what was it called? Innovation challenges rather than wicked challenges. So I did that and flipped it. And then I did a great big event at the end. I think if I'd done it at the beginning, they'd have probably, it would, booted me out. So that really helped. So put those in. So that was my key points. Thanks ever so much. It was really helpful.